Please give a wonderful, warm welcome to Lesley Ito.
Wondering if I should, use the microphone or no microphone?
No, I think you're fine.
Everybody always says I'm so loud anyway, so there we go. Okay, just one thing I wanted to say. Eric's loved your presentation. Absolutely loved your presentation. One thing that I did a master's degree kind of late in life. I started it like 2015 after I'd been teaching for a very, very long time. And I was a little bit nervous when I was starting it because I thought, uh-oh, I've been doing things for such a long time. Am I going to find out I'm doing everything wrong? But that's not what happened at all. What happened was I felt like I was doing the master's degree backwards. Like, oh, I'm already doing that. And now I have a fancy name. This is the fancy name for it. Yeah. So, when you're starting to find out, if you, I really, really do encourage you to try to read, academic books and find out the names of different things and these different theories. And because I think it will give you more confidence.
Yeah.
That, oh, I'm already doing that, and this is what it's called. Yeah. So anyway, all right, so I'm going to begin the Power of an Extensive Reading Library. But first of all, I want to tell you, I had a wonderful experience of going to the most beautiful library in the world.
Yeah.
It's actually a bookstore, but it's really more like a library, I think. Yeah, a lot of people call it. It's in Porto, in Portugal. And so actually, I don't know if you knew, but J.K. Rowling, she started off her career as an English teacher in Portugal. And so apparently she was very, very inspired by this bookstore.
Oh,
that's why it
works. I know, exactly. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. I mean, look at this thing. And then, it's got a stink on this window in the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
And then look at this line. Because you need a reservation. You need a reservation to get in here.
To buy a book.
To buy a book. Okay. And yeah, you have to pay money. You have to pay 10 euros to get in there. But if you buy a book, then you get the money back.
Smart.
Right. And in this day and age where everybody is just like constantly like all the time, it's really inspiring to see people get very, very excited about books and about libraries and about reading. People are still excited about books. They are. So this was really inspiring to me. And I don't have stained glass windows and gorgeous staircases, but this is my library. So I have an English school. I've been teaching 33 years now. And my second school is Big Bow. So my second school, Big Bow English Lab, next year will be our 20th year. Okay, yeah. So I thought about, right now I teach alone, so, thanks to COVID. So I teach alone. I've got 90 students, but this is my library. I've got 1,400 books in the school library. I've spent, over 20 years, collecting books and curating books, and this is what we have, and the kids really get very excited about it. So having a library, this is something, of course, it's really good from an educational perspective. It's also really good from a business perspective. If we don't have students, then we have no school. Okay, so to get people to sign up for your school, you have to show other people why your school is different, what sets you apart. And having a library is impressive to parents, and it really does set you apart from other schools. Now, I know right now that this sad face, it comes from a publisher rep that will remain unnamed who walked into my school standing in front of my library and tells me why I should be doing their online system instead. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, if I'm going to show them an iPad and go, there's a library on this, nobody is going to be impressed. Yes. Okay, sorry. It's just, I understand you know, if you've got an online school, of course, an online library makes more sense to you. And there are some, you know, maybe you have a lot of space constraints, or maybe you don't have a physical place to put a library. Then in that case, of course, having an online library is a good option for you. But, you know, people, woo, I mean, nobody's going to go look at an iPad and go, woo, I mean, it's just not going to happen. Again, talking about online extensive reading, it is very, very convenient. And everybody's like, well, that's the way the world is moving to. Okay. All right, so extensive reading is convenient, but there are studies, actually Katie and I were talking about this, there are studies that do suggest that children learn better and comprehend more from physical paper books as opposed to online reading. This was a study that was done in England during the COVID era, okay? Yeah. When I did my dissertation research, I did an action research project. So action research is when you do the research, you are the researcher, but you're also the practitioner, you're the person teaching. So you're in the middle of the research. So I had 91 students participate in my action research project. So it was quite a large sample size. How do they choose the book? And I thought it was definitely going to be the cover, especially since I have, you know, those you can see those bookshelves that I have where you can see the cover. But it wasn't. Most of them said the contents of the book. Okay. Some of it is the pictures of the book, but they take a look. They're very careful about choosing, and they open the book and they read a little bit of the book. And for choosing an online book, that's not going, I mean, I don't know, maybe they'll choose the online book in a different way, but that type of, that's not going to happen when you have an online book. It's a lot harder to do that. And also too, frankly, the literature quality is lacking. A lot of, I really don't want to, okay. You probably know what series I'm referring to that's very, very cheap and convenient and everybody loves it, but I'm sorry, those stories are not really good and they're not very interesting. They're just not. And then of course there's a lot of publishers that are pushing their system, but then of course, I mean, they do have high quality literature. They do have high quality literature for students who are learning English, but you're only limited to what they can provide. So it really does limit you. I know X reading is very popular with a lot of, does anybody know X reading? Yeah, so if you have any connection to university, you probably will hear about X reading. It's an online reading system with many different publishers. They don't really have so many teachers' materials. And he said, oh, we're gonna get more teachers' material, the children's materials. Sorry, I meant to say children's materials. They don't really have so many materials for children on their site. And he told me, oh yeah, we're gonna get more, but I don't really think this has happened, probably because of demand. There's probably not that much demand for it. Huh? Epic, never heard of Epic.
And Raz Kids in the ABC books.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Next slide.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Also too, I mean, like I said, this is my second school. The first school I kind of inherited from my husband. He started it. It was originally an English JUCO way back when, before Eikaiwas even existed. And then became an Eikaiwa. And then, you know, it was sort of we teach everybody, you know, typical early 90s Eikaiwa. And I noticed that students, especially the younger students, would usually stay for about 3 years. They would join, they would stay, and then parents kind of treated us like just another Narai Goto, like swimming school or something like that. Oh yeah, time to quit, you know, the JUCO's getting busy, and they would quit. But then when I started my new school, I had like CLIL lessons, which Eric talked about, and you know, and Katie does a lot of work with that, where you teach other subjects in English. My new curriculum had a CLIL curriculum, and also this very, very strong emphasis on reading and, you know, borrowing books from the library and literacy. I noticed the students were staying longer. They were staying, maybe at least twice as long. I've had some of my students who've been from preschool all the way to high school. They stay a lot longer. And I noticed a lot of the parents talking to me about how, they were just so impressed seeing their children reading at home. One mother, they had lived in America. I have a lot of returnees at my school too. They lived in America and then came back to Japan, and they were so worried about, how are we going to keep up the English? And then saw her daughter sitting down and reading a novel, and just like, I just felt so relieved, I just felt so relieved about that. So yes, child enjoying a library book, and this has a very, very powerful impact on parents.
It's like a dictionary.
It doesn't like a dictionary. It doesn't like a dictionary. This is not my student. This is not my student. This is a stock photo. I loved his open mouth. He looks at me, this is just enjoyment. Maybe he's looking up all the dirty words. I don't know. Okay. No, but of course, getting started with a library, most of us in Japan have 3 big hurdles that we have to overcome. Number 1, lack of space. This is Japan. We don't really have that much space at all. And then a small budget. Do not let this, I'll explain more about that. Don't let that keep you from doing it. And then also parental cooperation. Parental cooperation is another big one. Okay, lack of space. Well, I bought these from Rakuten. This really helped a lot of my space problems. You don't really need to have a huge space for a library book. And also, most graded readers are really thin anyway. I had one of my very good friends. She had truly just a 1-room in her house. She ran a really fantastic program. Her extensive reading library was, before the class, she would pull out a container. Okay, so she had a container and all of the books were divided, and the kids would kind of, flip through them. Don't let lack of space prevent you from, getting a library. You don't really need to have tons of books. You just need to have, we'll get to that. You really don't need to have tons of books. Okay, yeah, this is another one. I have a magazine rack. And then we also have some bookcases that, go inside the closet. Also, small budget. Extensive reading is something that is, for some reason, is very, very, it's pretty much started in Japan. It started in Japan and has become really popular in Asia. Extensive reading has become very popular in Asia in areas where, they literally have no money. They literally have no money, but yet they're able to to create a program. And actually Rob Waring, who is one of the greats, one of the main experts about extensive reading, he has a fantastic YouTube video. Even if you do have some money, I still recommend you watching this. How to do ER with no money and few resources. So really give you a lot of perspective. It won't seem as daunting. There's also, so they call this low resource. Those are freegradedreaders.com. But then another thing you have to remember, and even Dr. Waring says this in the YouTube video, remember, free does not equal good. Okay, free does not equal good. I've actually gotten a lot of books recently from some of my university professor friends. Okay. A lot of universities, like I said, they're moving to more online reading systems, and they might have the books that they might want to give you or sell to you for a cheap price. So I've been able to get some new books that way recently. And then also student created readers. So this is, having a library, you really need to make sure that it's not my library, it's our library. And the more buy-in, the more connection you give the students to the library, it's just more motivation to keep it going and borrow a lot of books. Student created readers, I know and we'll go back to that. Okay, so it's really, really best, instead of worrying about getting free readers or cheap readers or whatever, it's best to invest in a series you know students will like. Okay. It's best to have 1 or 2 really good series that you feel match your students' reading level and things that will appeal to them, and then let the students choose from there. And then you can build from there. These are the 2, the Foundation Reading Library from Cengage is a huge hit with my, I say, older elementary to early high school. And then also Oxford Reading Tree, of course, is a big favorite with a lot of the kids. These are the 2 probably most popular ones. And they're made really well, and they last for a really long time. Yeah. I've been very pleasantly surprised how nice the children treat the books. Yeah. So books that are appealing and actually read by the students are a good investment. It's not so, having a lot of books does not necessarily equal a good library. Having good books that are appealing and be read by the students, that is a good library. Okay, so now getting back to student created materials, Pete the Cat. Katie, you recognize this? Yeah. Yes, you should, because she made this. So we all know the story Pete the Cat, right? Okay. So she had the older students make their own versions of Pete the Cat. So Pete the Cat stepped in a pile of grapes, his shoes turned purple. Okay. But then Katie took it one step further, and she put the barcodes on the back and then put them into the library. So now these are books that the students can borrow. So the kids made a book, and now everybody else can borrow them. And I thought, that's a fantastic idea. And so I did the same thing. So I made multipath books. So multipath books are like choose your own adventure books. So the students read, page 1, page 2, and then they have to make a choice. And there are different ways. So I got this as a template off of the internet. And so we had the students, like 3 students made this one, The Fantastic World. Of course, this was during COVID, Battle Against the COVID. So two kids made this one. Okay, so they worked together and came up with a story, and then they divided up. So the junior high school students in my school made this for the younger students, for them to read. And then we put the codes on the back. And so the students were able to use the library system to borrow the books. These have been a huge hit. Yeah, these have been a huge hit. So that can help fill out your library if you need to. Now, one thing about beginners, that's one huge thing so I've been involved with the extensive reading group for a very, very long time. I first heard about extensive reading way back in 2000, I think. When I went to a seminar, and the extensive reading movement is very much focused on adults, mostly focused on university students, and they often, when they talk about extensive reading, I was always going, well, what about the getting students to read part? Learn how don't they need to learn how to read before they can do extensive reading, right? That part's always kind of skipped over. They never go over that part. So that's one huge thing it's very hard sometimes for people who are very into extensive reading to understand. When you have a kid come in and you're starting with A says apple, they're not going to be doing extensive reading from the beginning on their own. They're not going to be able to read because they're still beginning readers. They're still learning to read. They're still learning to read in their own language. They're still, so that's one thing that beginners really need to have audio. Just like when you learned to read when you were a child, hopefully you had somebody, your mom, your dad, or your grandma or somebody, sit in their lap and they would read the book to you. And now audio can do that. Of course, one big thing about this is CDs because they're becoming obsolete. They're really, really becoming obsolete. Now, a lot of my students still use CDs and it's fine. I will admit that this is becoming a bit of a problem. A lot of the newer readers that I've bought, they do have QR codes where you can scan the audio. You can scan the QR code and then you can stream the audio. Okay. And I've also had, not with my extensive reading library, but with textbooks and with other materials, I have had a lot of success contacting the publisher and explaining, hi, I've purchased your materials, I purchased this audio, I want to have this audio on I use Padlet a lot, so on a password protected Padlet, can I get permission? And most of the time, they have been very willing to work with me on that. So there are a couple of textbooks, this is getting off topic here, but there are some of the textbooks where you can get the audio, but it's like so complicated. Why do they make it so complicated? I don't understand. And I said,
I just want to add to that. For me, I take all of my audio, I throw it on the Google Drive, and then I make QR codes for every single.
Did you get permission?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did get permission. Okay, good. So getting permission from the, they're very, very willing to work with you on that. Okay. But yeah, this is something that I hope is going to improve in the future. Yeah. But even too, I mean, still sometimes it's not the best solution because sometimes the kids, might not have access to a iPad or, or mom's K-Tire or whatever. So, yeah. Really, CDs were great, but anyway, this is still something that I do admit that, yeah?
I mean, within your Lixon library, is there a network of people who have recordings already available that they share?
Well,
is there a community of sharing?
Well, that would not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't really do that with the copyright law, unfortunately. Yeah, everybody has to contact the publisher themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. The deal I made is that my audio is only for my school and I do not share the QR
Right.
codes outside of
Yeah.
the school.
Right, yeah. Publishers don't like the word sharing.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, yeah. But this is still something that I've talked to a lot of publishers about, In fact, do talk to the publishers. Complain, please. Complain to them. So maybe they'll help us out here. Okay. But yeah, having the audio definitely can make some of what we're doing, of course, we want the students to learn to read and improve their reading skills. But also some of what we're doing here is getting the students to enjoy literature, to find out their taste in books, to reading an English book is a natural thing that I like to do. We're also really doing that. Because when kids are young, they'll do what mom, dad, their teachers say. When they get about 9 years old, then they start having their own ideas. So if they decide for themselves that reading is something I like to do, then they're more willing to continue to do it. Okay? So we'll get into that. Autonomy, being able to choose and feeling like you have that freedom is really important. Okay, parental cooperation. So teachers can gain the cooperation of parents if you first have to explain what ER is. You have to explain what extensive reading is to the parents. Sometimes parents will just be like, they're so used to, we always start from our experience. Okay. And some parents will think that they have to translate the book. No, you don't have to translate the book, Well, they don't understand everything. That's okay.
Yeah.
They're probably not understanding everything when they read in Japanese either. Okay. So explaining to the parents what extensive reading is. Do not let the parents choose the books for the children. Do not. I've had some really pushy parents who are like, well, this is not hard enough for my child. My child could be reading something a lot more difficult. And I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. Those kids, because I do have the luxury, I've had the luxury and the wonderful experience of seeing students, all the way through their, educational career. The kids that start out really early and, reading, they don't always progress. Sometimes they stay at the same level forever. And sometimes the kids, if they feel a lot of pressure from their parents, then they will choose the easiest thing so that they can get mom. I'm going to choose this easy book so I can get my mom off my back. Okay, that's not something you want to have in your extensive reading program. Let the kids choose and advocate for the kids if the parents don't understand. Really ask the parents to be autonomy supportive. Autonomy supportive means when you support the children in their freedom to choose and to read what they like. Okay, so it's autonomy support, making the kids feel like that they have a choice and that their choices are, good things. So now you have a library, now what? Okay. So first of all, we need to answer this, what is extensive reading? So I've been talking about extensive reading for a while. Let's really talk about what extensive reading is. Okay. Let's first talk about what extensive reading is not. Okay. Extensive reading is not reading something your teacher told you to do. Sometimes when I've talked to people about extensive reading, they have this idea of, so I have this system so that kids will start at book 1 and they'll work their way through. No, that's not what extensive reading is. If you can get through the same thing, just have them choose what they want. Okay, but don't insist that you have to read this book, then you have to read this book. That's not extensive reading. Reading something so you can do comprehension questions. This is also not extensive reading. Now, I do realize that a lot of graded readers have comprehension questions in the back. Please feel free to ignore those comprehension questions. Reading with the dictionary by your side, looking up the words all the time. If you're looking up words all the time, that means that it's not extensive reading and the book is too hard for you and you should choose something a little bit easier. Now, another thing is, adult extensive reading, they say that you should know for things to be, Eric was talking about comprehensible input, like Krashen's theory, you're supposed to understand 98% of the words. For the children, even Paul Nation was talking about that the kids, it's just a different thing. It's really, really a different thing. So don't worry about that 98% often quoted line about extensive reading. That's kind of more for adults. Okay, so the kids don't need to learn, don't need to know it that well, but it's not necessary for them to read the dictionary by their side. Most of the children's books have pictures. So the pictures can aid with the comprehension of the story. Extensive reading is reading many easy books chosen by the student. Okay. So in your library, it's really important to kind of group the books by level and tell the kids, okay, probably for you, this area is best. Okay. But, hey, probably for you, this area is too easy. Maybe this area would be better. Okay. So having the kids know which area to go to choose helps with that. Also, ER is reading as a solitary activity. So extensive reading is not reading together as a group or alone. Now, there's this new idea that I've only heard from somebody who's really into extensive reading. He's in Indonesia. And I haven't really been able to get much information, but there is some ideas saying that supported extensive reading, like doing storytelling in class is extensive reading. Haven't been able to find out that much information about that. Hopefully we'll get more clarity on that soon. But for the most part, extensive reading is a solitary activity. So in my school, of course, I'm an eikaiwa. The parents expect a lot of speaking and listening. Having the kids sit in the classroom and read, parents are not going to be supportive of that. So they check it out and they do it at home. They check it out and they do it at home. So reading can be done in class or at home. There are some programs like international preschools where the kids are reading in the classroom, like maybe during a break time or something like that. But in my program, they do it at home. Now, a lot of times, how can I motivate my students to read? You hear this a lot about motivating students, I need to motivate my students. But people have an idea that you can motivate a person. It's impossible. It's impossible to motivate a person unless you are like motivating them by fear. Okay?
Intimidation.
I mean, your intimidation, perhaps you can motivate them. But motivation that comes from inside, intrinsic motivation. So your own, because doing something because you want to do it. You cannot make somebody have that feeling. However, that's the wrong question to ask. The question you can ask is, how can I create an environment where students will be motivated to read? And this comes from self-determination theory. So self-determination theory is really, it's a very, very popular, there's a lot of YouTube videos about this. And a lot of the businesses are very interested in this because they want to create an environment where their employees will feel more motivated. Okay? So you can't change a person, but you can change the environment. You can change the activity. Okay? So, okay, good. So students, so in order to feel motivated, students really want to feel like they have autonomy, so a feeling of being in control and having choice, okay? So one thing that, when I was doing my dissertation research, at first I had this idea. There is this really amazing teacher in Texas. Her name is Donalyn Miller, and she wrote this book called The Book Whisperer. Okay? I was so inspired by this book. Wow. So she gets the kids to read like 40 novels a year in her 6th grade class. Okay. Right? Okay. So she's really, really inspiring. I mean, she has a lot of fans. I thought, wow, this is great. I want to become a book whisperer. I mean, that sounds really cool, right? So when I started out doing my dissertation research, I could not find any studies about book whispering in an EFL context. Okay, so maybe I'll do it. Okay, so I started off my dissertation research with a questionnaire to the kids. So, I want to receive more help from the teacher to help choose the books. Okay, so actually, sorry, I haven't explained. So Donalyn Miller, she gets a questionnaire from the students about the things that they like, and then she gives the books. And actually, there is another school in Shinjuku, SEG, the Scientific Education Group, led by Dr. Furukawa, and they also give the books to the students. They don't let the students choose. So I thought, well, maybe this will help with it. Well, my students they hated this. I mean, it was like so overwhelming that I had to change my dissertation topic. My advisor was like, no, you can't pursue this. There's too much negative feeling about it. The kids did not like it. They did not want help from the teacher. They basically told me to back off. One returnee kid wrote, just stay and I'll do the read and choose. Okay. It's really funny when you do research on kids because they are so brutally honest. They really are very brutally honest. No. So I was like, okay, now I have to change it. But that was really, really interesting to me. It was interesting because I see my students for many, many years. So I should know them really well. The times that I had recommended something to the students, the only kids who were excited about receiving help from the teacher were the times that I had recommended something to them and they really, really liked it. What was shocking was how few times that happened. I was mostly unsuccessful. And one kid wrote, the teacher recommended this bug book to me, but I don't like bugs. But I felt like I had to borrow it anyway because the teacher said I should read it. Ouch. Ouch. So they really, really wanted to choose their own book. Yeah, they really didn't want my help. Yeah. So how do you recommend books but support student autonomy? Through indirect recommendation. Okay. So when I wanted to do indirect recommendation, I went two ways. One was a way to do like peer recommendations, where they would recommend books to each other, and the other one was teacher read alouds. Peer recommendation didn't go so well. It really, really didn't. If you want to know more, my papers I wrote a couple papers about this. It's at the end. You can read that crazy story. But teacher read alouds, were so successful and was so easy to implement. Yeah, so teacher read alouds. All I did was, so here's Elephant and Piggy. I'm sure you guys know this one. All I did was, right before it was time to check out books from the library, I read a little bit from this book, the Elephant and Piggy book, and then I set them down. And then I took a big step back, and I backed off. Okay, and of course, these books are very, very appealing, so they were gone. They were gone. Okay. All right, so here you can see this in action. I'm going to stand over here so that you can see the video. But here is reading the teacher read alouds in action. I'm going to introduce some books to you, and this book is called The Missing Monkey. All right. This is the main characters of this story are Jimmy
like a lot of
and
international
Larry.
school graduates.
It is 4:30 on Saturday afternoon. Jimmy is watching cartoons. Someone knocks at the door. Jimmy opens the door and sees Larry. Larry is very excited. "Look at this, Jimmy," he says. In Larry's hand is a newspaper. It says, "Golden Monkey missing from museum. Thieves get away." "I want to help the police get the thieves," says Jimmy. "Let's go to the museum." Jimmy and Larry run to the museum. Many police officers are there. Newspaper and television reporters are there too. The reporters are asking questions. Jimmy sees Captain Lynn. "Do you have any clues, Captain Lynn?" he asks. "I have this photograph," says Captain Lynn. He gives Jimmy a color photograph. It shows two thieves driving away from the museum in a black car. Here's a picture of the
This
thieves.
is more like shared reading, not just straight reading.
Can we
but
have this?
Using the
Jimmy asks.
pictures, pointing
Yes,
things out.
says the captain.
Okay.
I have
The
one
shared
more
reading.
photograph at the police station. Jimmy and Larry thank Captain Lynn and say goodbye.
It is fast.
Huh?
It is fast.
What is fast? Where they say goodbye, yeah, true. The boys bring the photograph to Larry's house. Larry gets his magnifying glass. He's going to look at it carefully. He looks carefully at the picture. "Look at this, Jimmy," he says. "The person sitting next to the driver is a dummy. But the newspaper says two thieves went to the museums. Where is the other thief?" Jimmy asks. "I don't know," Larry answers. "Let's go back to the museum and look for more clues." So one of the people in the car is a dummy. It's not a real person. It's a doll that looks like a person. I know. What a mystery, huh?
Okay, so as you notice, notice the little pink shirted ponytail girl. You can sort of see her.
She's like standing up and looking at the book. Okay.
Do you see her? Do you see her in the corner? Yeah? Yeah.
"Do you want fish with that?" "Yes," laughs Jimmy. "Fish and chips will be jolly good." Okay, great. Now, today, so right now it's time for the library. Wait. It's time for the library. So if you're interested in these books, I'll put them right here, okay? Okay, good. And then
Okay, the library today.
Those are
Okay,
other books in
So
this
you
same
guys,
series.
you guys can go first, okay?
Now watch this kid
Okay, wait.
push me out of the way. Yeah. Okay, this is the pink shirted ponytail girl. She's all excited, looking at the books. Okay.
Okay.
Do you remember the boy who pushed me out of the way? There he is, borrowing the books.
Hey.
Yeah. The kids love to borrow the books using their own library card. So this is a different class, some older returnee kids. So they usually like to read novels and like graphic novels, like Babysitter Club is a popular one. So I wanted to introduce nonfiction to them, so something completely different from what they're usually interested in, because that's not normally something that they would. Now this is the biggest die-hard Babysitters Club graphic novel fan, borrowing a bunch of nonfiction books for a change. Okay. Okay. All right. But another thing, so the books must be appealing. I mean, you can't just do this with any book and expect it to work. And also, all the students are not going to be interested. You know, you're not always going to hit the target. All books don't appeal to all students. Okay. So young learners must have easy access to appealing books at their level. It must be easy to find the books that they like, and also it must be easy for them to check out the books. It must be easy, must be fun. That's one thing I like about the library system. You have that little their card, the beep, bing, you know. Yeah. It's like Duolingo, you know, that thing like, right? Right? It's just kind of Pavlovian there, okay? So here's, yeah, you know these kids. Yeah, look how excited they are to get their library card. Yeah. So yeah, having a barcode scanner is really, it makes the books easy to check out, and it's fun to check out. And I was really, I started this with my assistant teacher at the time. So he was IT, he was burned out IT. Came to Japan for 2 years. And then he said, do you want me to make something for your school? I said, yeah. So he made this. So he's back in Australia now, but of course we're still business partners here for this. I only did it because I didn't want to lose books. I was wondering, am I losing books? I didn't know, because everybody was writing it in a notebook. And then I was really surprised at how excited the kids were about it. It really brought a big breath of fresh air into my library. And the library was a lot more active because the books were a lot easier to check out. Okay. Yeah, so you can use it with a tablet, with a Bluetooth scanner, or we use an old laptop that I'm not using, and with a kind of supermarket scanner that you plug in. Okay, so if you're sort of wondering how it works, this is a day at my school. This is my school in Inaka in Nagoya. So the kids return the books, okay, when they come to class. And then, of course, my system, you can also co-roll and keep attendance with it too. Then my husband, the office staff, he takes all of the books. And that's what, yeah, you can see when we built this in the middle of COVID. The books are easily scanned. You can scan them to return them. And then he brings the books back and he shelves them. And then here's where I shelve all of my magic tree house. Then it's library time. Now that all the books are back on the shelves, now it's time for the kids to choose themselves. So notice, what does he do? He opens the book. Like I said, they said the contents of the book was how they chose. And then they check out the books themselves. Yeah, Dog Man is another very, very popular one. kindergartners, they need a little help. I try to teach them to do it themselves. Okay. So I've written two papers, so two academic papers on this topic. On this QR code will take you to a Padlet, where both of them are. The TLT article is probably an easier read. That's one I just wrote for the younger learners column for Jolt. So after this, all I wanted to do was show Lawrence's. Yeah.
Great.
Right, I got it.
Thank you. I'm honored.
I just thought it was really good. So, yeah, I just really quickly wanted to show, so Lawrence's school, what he's been doing in his school, where instead of having the staff take care of the, checking out the books and returning the books and everything, he has his students do so. So, yeah, so he has the students take care of shelving the books and scanning them and everything like that. This is just wonderful that, the kids are taking ownership of the library. Now, it's not the school library, it's not the teacher's library, it's our library. And this is something that's going to create, when I talk about that environment where students will be more motivated to check out books and to participate and to read. Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you very much.